Guys, welcome back to another video, and today we will be reacting to the most painful deaths, and guys, we're gonna see some crazy things. Very painful, so let's just hop right in.
Incident. It was supposed to be an ordinary flight from New York to Dallas. Instead, it turned into one of the most horrifying mid-air tragedies in US aviation history. On April 17th, 2018, a woman would board a Boeing 737 carrying 149 people to take a trip back to her home in Albuquerque, New Mexico. On Southwest Airlines, passengers aren't assigned specific seats. They simply just band together in groups and pick any seat that's available. The only one left for the woman was a seat in row 14, on the left side of the plane, next to a window. After making herself comfortable in her new spot, something unexpected would happen. After the plane took off, it spontaneously suffered a catastrophic engine failure at 32,000 feet. A fan blade broke loose, ripping through the engine casing and sending dangerous shrapnel into the plane's fuselage. One piece of debris struck a window, instantly blowing it out. And as you would guess, the window it struck would be none other than the woman's. In an instant, the 43-year-old mother of two was partially sucked out of the plane. The decompression was violent. Passengers scrambled in shock as the rushing wind pulled her torso outside, leaving her head and arms flailing violently into the sky. Desperate to save her, fellow passengers held onto her legs, trying to keep her body inside the plane with every ounce of their strength. Flight attendants fought chaos with calmness, urging everyone to remain seated while the crew prepared for an emergency descent. For 20 agonizing minutes, the cabin was a battleground between survival and disaster. Despite passengers' efforts, the vicious thrashing was too severe on the woman's body. By the time the crippled jet made its emergency landing in Philadelphia, she had passed away. Times like these reveal just how fragile safety can be at 30,000 feet in the air, and how a single shattered pane of glass can mean the difference between a peaceful ride to your destination and pure tragedy. The photo incident. It was a desperate escape. A young boy longed for adventure, for freedom beyond the confines of his home in Sydney, Australia. On February 21st, 1970, he slipped past security at the Sydney airport and crawled into the wheel well of a DC-8 jet that was headed for Tokyo. He thought he'd hidden himself safely away and that he was ready to be carried across the world. But stowaway flights carry a fatal flaw. Moments after takeoff, the landing gear began to retract. While the plane was flying, the wheel well doors opened and the boy was suddenly exposed to the rushing sky. With no warning, he tumbled out, plummeting 200 feet to the ground, with his body slamming into the earth as horrified witnesses looked on. In a tragic twist, a photographer testing out a new camera lens wanted to give the device a try. He thought to himself, what's more breathtaking to photograph than a plane on the verge of takeoff? As he positioned himself and his new camera lens to take a photo of the plane flying, he would accidentally and unknowingly capture the boy's final fall. This incident would leave behind a tragic and haunting image of a body suspended midair just seconds before doom. His parents were devastated. Reports show that in response to him running away, they would travel with him overseas to satisfy his adventurous spirit. But even at that, he still kept running away, so they sent him to a boarding school to keep him grounded and protected. Nonetheless, the boy still escaped. I won't lie, it's cases like these that kinda put a damper on my mood. And as much as I talk about physical health and its safety on this channel, mental health is just as important, and so I'm happy to thank today's sponsor, BetterHelp. We cover a plethora of tragic. Every once in a while, when I was younger, would I ever reach out for help or social support. But as I grew older and lost some people ever face their struggle.
Bro, I don't care about this.
Around real people reflect on. Father of two would slip past security Malpensa to be gateways of excitement, the place where journeys begin. But for one man at the Milan Malpensa airport, the runway became a place of unimaginable shock. In July 2023, a 35-year-old ground worker and father of two would slip past security and break onto the runway. The man didn't have any tickets and wasn't a plane passenger of any sort, so staff and security alike would tackle him down to the ground. However, upon breaking free from their grasps, he would begin climbing onto the side of the Airbus. As the plane began slowly powering up and got ready to take off, its sudden movement caused the man to fall off. Without a second to waste, the man would jump back up and run to the other side of the plane to climb on top of it again. However, as he was crossing the left side, the jet's ginormous engine would violently suck the man inside. A jet engine's blades are razor sharp and spin thousands of times per minute. Not to mention that the deeper you go inside of it, the hotter it gets. The man instantly was blended into a red mess. His remains were unrecognizable, and the only things that were assumed to be left behind were pieces of bone, tissue, and shredded clothing. Witnesses like the aircraft marshal said the force was so sudden and violent that there was absolutely no chance of escape. He'd go on to say that one moment, as the marshal, he was guiding the plane into position. The next...
Guys, why do people do such dumb things with planes, bro? I'm just gonna say, guys, never do this. This is the freaking dumbest idea in the world. Also, shout out to Miss Fee. She's the best student teacher in the world, and today was her last day. Yeah, sad. Let's just continue.
Moment, he sees the powerful vacuum of the engine ripping a man from the ground and dragging his body into its spinning blades. The sound was deafening. Passengers on board watched in shock, realizing what had just happened. Authorities later confirmed that the man passed away instantly. Colleagues described him as cheerful, hardworking, and devoted to his family. But his passing was a chilling reminder of the brutal physics at play in aviation. One simple misstep of being too close to an active engine can erase a life in seconds, or maybe even quicker. The Ghost Plane Incident. On the morning of August 14, 2005, what began as a routine flight from Cyprus to Athens turned into one of the eeriest tragedies in aviation history. A Boeing 737 carrying 121 people climbed into the skies. But just minutes after takeoff, something was terribly wrong. The cabin pressurization system had been left in manual mode during pre-flight checks. As the aircraft ascended, oxygen levels dropped. Slowly, everyone on board began to lose consciousness. Passengers slumped in their seats. The pilots collapsed at the controls. And as for the plane, it became eerily silent on the inside and kept on flying at 34,000 feet in the sky on autopilot. For 2 hours, the plane would continuously fly in a circle above Athens. A massive aircraft, full of unconscious souls, drifting with no one in command. Fighter jets scrambled to intercept it, peering into the cockpit only to see the captain's chair empty and the co-pilot slumped lifelessly over the controls. Meanwhile, oxygen masks dangled uselessly from the ceiling. But then, one man moved. Flight attendant Andreas Prodromou had regained partial consciousness thanks to a portable oxygen supply. In a desperate final act, he entered the cockpit and tried to save the aircraft. Witnesses believe he attempted to steer it away from Athens, sparing the city from catastrophe. At 12:04, nearly 3 hours after takeoff, the plane eventually ran out of fuel. Despite the man's efforts to try to land it properly away from the city, the Boeing plunged into a hillside near Grammatiko in Greece, leaving nobody on board to survive its crash.
Dang,
Investigators
bro.
concluded...
This is why planes are so dangerous. I hate that I have to go on like 8 planes every year and like this could happen to me.
It was a costly mix of human error and mechanical oversight. A simple switch left in the wrong position, a mistake no one caught in time. Although devastating, the lives on the plane are still remembered till this day, especially the heroic man who was able to veer the plane away from Athens City and stop it from crashing on hundreds of unsuspecting citizens. Oh, the humanity. On May 6, 1937, a luxurious German passenger airship, marketed as the peak of elegance and wealth, attempted to dock at the Lakehurst Naval Air Station in New Jersey after a transatlantic flight. Dozens of spectators gathered to watch the massive Zeppelin. It was 804 feet long, which is nearly twice the length of a Boeing 747. It also weighed nearly 500,000 pounds. But it only carried 97 people. The beautiful airship began to descend from the clouds, preparing itself to land.
So guys, guess how much a cloud weighs. If you get this wrong, you have to like and subscribe. It weighs 1,000,000 pounds. Like, I'm not even joking because of all the water that's soaked up in there. 1,000,000 pounds.
Without warning, disaster struck. You see, the ship was maneuvering during a thunderstorm and garnered a static electric charge within its metal frame.
Bro, we all know what's going to happen. It's going to crash.
Wouldn't be too much of an issue if the ship was using helium, as it was quite literally designed to use it. But for political reasons in 1937, the United States refused to export helium to Germany, and so individuals would go on to fill the airship with hydrogen instead, an extremely flammable gas. Even though the Germans knew this was very
Alright, so I'm going to guess it's going to light on fire and explode.
dangerous, they did it anyway. And so, as the Hindenburg hovered above the mooring mast, it dropped its landing ropes, which is theorized to have created a spark. In a flash, gigantic flames erupted near the tail of the ship, and within seconds, the entire airship was engulfed in fire, while it was still flying in the sky. The hydrogen gas keeping the Zeppelin afloat ignited into a breathing inferno, turning the proud airship into a falling torch as it floated 200 feet off the ground. People inside struggled for survival as the interior became an oven of smoke and flames. Many people and others collapsed from smoke inhalation. Ultimately, passengers became faced with the horrifying reality that their only escape from the ship was to jump 200 feet to the ground. People leapt from the burning craft as it collapsed to the ground in just 34 seconds. The screams of passengers became mixed with the roar of fire, and terrifying enough, 36 people would perish from this disaster. But what really made this tragedy unforgettable was the live radio broadcast. Remember that this was going on in 1937? Many people never saw or even heard of things like this, especially on radio. Reporter Herbert Morrison, who was covering the landing, was overcome with horror as he cried out words that would echo through history.
Oh, the humanity and all the passengers screaming around me. I don't do it. I can't even talk to people.
Oh, the humanity. A phrase that became synonymous with the disaster, leaving many others to shout the same thing whenever witnessing another tragedy unfold. The Hindenburg is a haunting reminder of how quickly human ambition can be consumed by flame and political strife.
This is just insane. Yeah? Be right back, guys. Okay? Bro.
In terms of recent politics in the US, a lot has been going on. But don't let violence scare you, and don't let strife divide you. Love your neighbor as you would love yourself, and treat others how you wish to be treated. Keep your head up always, and as usual, have a happy day.
That was just insane, guys. People.
Apshawa Preserve tragedy. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in September 2014. Darsh Patel, a 22-year-old computer science student at Rutgers University, was out hiking with 4 friends. They had decided to explore the Apshawa Preserve, a densely wooded area in West Milford, New Jersey. None of them had been there before. As they followed one of the narrow trails, they spotted a black bear in the distance. It was standing still, watching them from about 100 meters away. Instead of backing away, the group stopped to take pictures. Some of them even took selfies with the bear visible in the background. But the situation changed quickly. The bear began to move toward them. At first, it was a slow approach, almost cautious. Then its behavior became more focused and direct. It wasn't running, but it wasn't stopping either. The group panicked. They turned and ran in different directions. Darsh was last seen running down a separate path. The others lost sight of him. After reaching the edge of the preserve and realizing he hadn't made it out, they contacted the police. A search team was sent in. About 2 hours later, officers discovered Darsh's body approximately 60 yards off the trail.
Cannot show
The
that.
injuries were severe. He had been bitten and clawed repeatedly. His clothes were torn, and the scene made it clear how violent the struggle had been. A black bear was still nearby when authorities arrived. It showed no fear of humans and didn't retreat, which is highly unusual. Officials decided the animal was too dangerous and had to be put down. Darsh's phone was found near his body. It was damaged, but several photos were recovered. Among them were images of the bear, taken shortly before the attack. These photos helped investigators piece together the timeline of events. The autopsy revealed that none of the injuries were instantly fatal. Darsh had died from blood loss. He was conscious during the attack and died slowly. It was the first fatal bear attack ever recorded in New Jersey in more than 150 years.
Guys, like, one of those images I literally couldn't show because of how, like, guys, this is, like, if you see a bear, don't run, play dead.
The incident made national headlines, not only because of how tragic and brutal it was, but because it had been so clearly documented. A young man's final moments were captured through his own camera lens. Pazarjik Forest Incident. On July 31st, 2017, 31-year-old Tomika Gospodinov entered the forests near Pazarjik in Bulgaria alone. He wasn't there for a hike or a legal hunt. He had come to set an illegal animal trap, the kind designed to capture large game with brutal efficiency. The trap was heavy and mechanical, built to clamp down with enormous force. But instead of catching an animal, it caught him. At some point, Tomika stepped directly into his own contraption. The steel jaws snapped shut around his leg, shattering the bone and pinning him to the forest floor. He was completely alone, with no way to call for help and no one who knew where he was. The injury wasn't instantly fatal, but it left him immobilized and bleeding. He remained trapped, waiting in vain for someone to find him. As the hours dragged on, his condition worsened. Blood loss continued slowly, and dehydration began to take hold. He was conscious, fully aware of what was happening, and unable to escape. Eventually, after he failed to return, authorities began searching the area. When they found his body, he was still caught in the trap. The surrounding ground showed clear signs of a struggle, but there was no evidence of animal involvement. The coroner's report confirmed that he had died from massive blood loss over time. It had been a slow, agonizing death. There were no other injuries and no other people involved, just his own trap that has killed him. Compiègne Forest Tragedy. On January 19, 2015, the 30-year-old experienced hunter, Julien G., was taking part in an organized wild boar hunt with a group of fellow hunters. It was a routine outing, conducted in the Compiègne Forest, northern France, and nothing at first suggested danger. During the hunt, a large wild boar was spotted and wounded by a shot, but instead of fleeing, the injured animal turned aggressive. In a sudden burst of speed, it charged straight toward Julien. Before he could react, the boar drove one of its sharp tusks into his leg. The impact struck a major artery in his thigh. Blood loss was immediate and severe. His hunting partners rushed to help. They called emergency services and tried to stop the bleeding, but the wound was catastrophic. Despite their efforts and the rapid arrival of medical responders, Julien died at the scene just minutes after the attack. The incident was fully documented by police and paramedics. Statements from those present confirmed that it was a single, injured boar, a sudden charge, and one fatal strike that resulted in a violent and unexpected death.
Why does everyone die in a blood loss? That's literally like the worst place to
Ivy
die.
Park Nightmare. On September 6, 2005,
That looks like
30-year-old
he's
Dr.
killing
Jacqueline Perry and her husband, Mark
Why
Jordan,
are they always
were on a
around
canoeing
That's
trip
so
through the
young.
remote wilderness of Missinaibi Lake Provincial Park, northern Ontario, Canada. Both were experienced in the outdoors and had stopped along a forested shoreline to rest. It was part of a longer backcountry journey they had planned together. While they were on land, a black bear appeared without warning. The animal was not startled by their presence. Instead, it moved directly toward Jacqueline and attacked. The bear seized her and dragged her into the nearby woods. Mark immediately ran after them. Armed with nothing but a small knife, he fought the bear in an attempt to save his wife. He stabbed it repeatedly, managing to drive it away. The struggle left him badly injured, but alive. Jacqueline, however, was gravely wounded. Despite his own injuries, Mark carried her back to their canoe and paddled toward the nearest outpost to get help. Eventually, he reached a nearby lodge and emergency services were called. A rescue helicopter was dispatched, but despite their efforts, Jacqueline was pronounced dead. The autopsy confirmed she had died from injuries consistent with a bear mauling. The incident was fully documented by Ontario Provincial Police and wildlife authorities. The bear was later tracked and euthanized. Mark Jordan survived, physically wounded and emotionally devastated.
This happened to so many people. Bears have been killing people. Like, honestly, if any animal deserves to go extinct, it's bears.
His actions were later recognized by the Canadian government, and he was awarded the Star of Courage, one of the country's highest civilian honors for bravery in life-threatening situations. The story received national attention in Canada, not only because of its brutality, but because it was a rare and tragic case of a deliberate bear attack, and a real-life example of a man risking everything in an attempt to save the woman he loved. Southern Oregon Forest. On August 18, 2022, a 25-year-old wildland firefighter employed by a contracted forestry services company was dispatched early that morning alongside his crew to respond to newly ignited wildfires caused by lightning in the southern Oregon forests, Josephine County. The team mobilized before dawn as part of initial containment efforts. By mid-afternoon, around 3:30 p.m., the crew was stationed near the Rum Creek fire region. They had paused on site, planning fire line construction and hazard assessments. No active tree cutting or direct work was being performed under the particular tree in question when disaster struck. A seemingly live green tree nearby unexpectedly failed. Unknown to the crew, the tree had sustained internal damage. An earlier lightning strike and previous fire burns had weakened its base. Without warning, the weakened tree collapsed, striking the firefighter directly. He suffered severe trauma and was mortally wounded. Emergency responders reached the scene quickly, and he was transported to the local medical center. Despite rapid medical aid, he succumbed to his injuries shortly afterward. A joint investigation by OSHA and OHSU FACE noted key contributing factors. The hazard tree appeared outwardly healthy but harbored internal fire damage. No operational activity was ongoing beneath it at the moment it fell, and no prior mitigation had been performed on that tree. Rattlesnake Trail Tragedy.
Guys, please like and subscribe, or else all of these things, terrible things that we've seen today, will happen to you and your family. Now that won't happen. I'm not that bad of a person to say that, guys. Have a great day. Just please like and subscribe, and see you next time.